so in the meantime, I'm going to go to city council folks, because I know a lot of council members, and Molly Clifford has already agreed that she'd be interested in coming, and I could check with some others about that. So we'll get the mayor part, and we'll get the city council part, first, hopefully, in here. So we got to get these conversations started. All right, so the big task that I'd love to see is, so we've done all this brainstorming, we've asked for data, we're asking questions about the data, we're compiling the data. And I'm wanting to get back to the policy itself. Not that we're trying to fit ourselves into the policy, but I wanted to really look at the original policy carefully and see if it was being implemented the way it was intended. So I created all these questions, and you can pull that down from that too. I don't think we have the policy in front of us. I'm sure it's up here if you want to pull it up. So I kind of highlighted every sentence where it stated we were going to do something in the policy, and I asked a question about it. And I thought it would be a useful exercise for us to discuss this as a group, because I know we have different opinions about it. And so here's where we can see where we're all on the same page, and where there might be a variety of opinions. And if there's a variety of opinions, we'll just put several different perspectives down. And that way we'll get closer and closer to pulling together something we all agree on, and then we can move to writing our own formal suggestions that might be based off of the proposal that we already started to write, somewhere between the policy and our proposal. Does that make sense? Okay. And did you come in with some stuff too that you wanted to?
I had given some data, right?
Okay.
And
You wanted to talk about before we get into the questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
The charter schools.
Oh, yeah.
Had extracted the K-6. Just K-6.
Right. Did you get a chance to look at that?
Now, what was the,
I think I might have some of those, actually.
Document 19.
Let me just take a look, and then I did talk to Robin Hooper about the pre-K.
I collected, you mean the stuff that you brought in last time on the seat capacity and
There was some conversation about,
People coming back from charters.
right,
This document here.
yeah, that one.
oh,
Exit analysis.
right, and then you asked for two other pieces, so. So this is
That's the one.
yeah, returning, and so, we had wanted to do it by month. And if you look at the top, about half the students return from charter schools in the past 3 years come back before the beginning of the school year. And then after October, the numbers remain fluctuating. So we were just trying to wrap our brains around when are students coming back from charters. But there's still, there's movement all year long, as you can see.
Can we see the
What's the total number? You're saying 166 went, 229 went, and 286?
return.
No, those are returned.
Oh, return. So what's the total number who left? So it's the return out of what number?
Yeah. Oh, it's been escalating with kids in charters, remember, and the budget, we always have that budget number, do we know? The ballpark.
It wouldn't be in the exit report that we have, students leaving the district.
I have that exit report.
Right, I think if you take that, we already had that data. In the exit report, and then this was like, oh, well, what's the flip side of that? And then from that.
Right.
But this is only this is K-6?
No.
Oh, so.
2 copies of the exit report.
Right, and that was a follow-up question from this exit report, because on the second page is all the categories of the exits, and one of them is 2 charter schools in the city.
So 521, 782, 632, 638.
There you go. What page is that?
It'd be the 4.
So first you give me the percent, then we give you the number.
So maybe a third to a fourth return, is that about right? That would be about a third to a fourth students.
Which I think people don't realize that.
Yeah. And when is the testing done?
So like one.
I was surprised because testing is usually in,
May. April.
April.
Yeah,
And our
so it is a-
hypothesis was, and we have heard stories about
Yeah.
students coming before testing, but they also come.
It seems like it's a
Yeah.
flow.
Right. They also come, I guess, it looks like mostly in that beginning, through October, through Wednesday. Is the biggest, you know.
in a single month. Yeah,
Right.
Is there any reason that the district could not have a billboard on 10 different spots that say 25% of families who have gone to charter schools have returned?
I just think it's a good piece of information in
It
our
is.
back pocket.
It is, it's really good.
I mean, the state, I lean a little bit more towards the bias that charter schools are not always. I support the families that return to the district.
No. But I don't know, I mean, can we do that
What was that?
since charter schools are public schools? Can we do that? You know, I mean, I don't know what the
Oh,
rules
yeah.
are.
I mean,
Okay,
they're
no, that's fine,
advertising-
that's
They're
fine.
advertising against us. Like that's, when I say us, I
That's
feel
fine.
that.
I just want to know what the rules are.
Right, so I'm wondering if there is any reason that the district couldn't be that bold.
I gotta say, though, that even if they're not coming in April, I suspect that most of these kids are getting kicked out. They're not coming back.
I would think the ones during the school year are getting kicked out, and maybe the ones in the summer are the ones that
The families decided.
didn't have a good experience.
Yeah, because I've heard.
I think you're right. I think, a good, that's like a 50-50 split.
I mean,
I think if any of them are coming back, you can make the assumption that they're not having a good experience.
Yeah.
All right, so you can say that for all of them. And whether that good experience is gently persuaded to leave because they're having issues in the school or they aren't doing well academically, or if the parents
Gotta
are
have
unhappy.
services for them.
It doesn't, I mean, the issue is really,
Yeah.
all of them across the board, and wherever they are, the parents have decided that the district is better than what's happening in their childhood charter school.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can, I mean, we can guess.
Well, that's
But,
not
I mean-
true. When the kids get kicked out, that's not the same thing as the parents deciding
Right.
that
That's true.
they're better off.
But the parents never come to us, the information we get from the charter school. So the parent, in order to leave a charter school and re-enroll, you have to have an exit statement from the charter school. And none of those exit statements ever say this kid has been kicked out.
They find other ways.
say?
They find other ways.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah, but we hear
I'm
it
just-
anecdotally all the time.
But I was saying, so you can't really ever say, oh, well, they got kicked out, because theoretically, if you ask the charter school, they've never kicked anybody out.
What do they say on the exit statements? Just curious.
Not a good match, not a
Not a
good
good
fit.
match.
Some,
No.
kind of
Does
obtuse,
not have a nice
Mhm.
smile.
obtuse, non-committal statement that doesn't make them look bad. How's that?
All right.
Yeah, because anecdotally, just true stories, they ended up in a very strict military kind of, not like the one they're thinking, but it's all about like discipline.
Yeah.
And it just does not match the kid. And they ended up, unfortunately, going to Brighton eventually. But they just knew it was not a good match. After
Yeah.
2 years, they got fed up.
Yeah, you have to know what you're getting into if you're going to pick one of those no excuses charter schools.
So on that form, are they allowed to say that they kicked the kid out and they don't say that, or?
That's not our
It's
fault.
not a choice.
Yeah.
It's their fault.
They don't want to say it.
They're not gonna put down.
You could have an
You know,
entry interview with the family.
My sister had worked at Urban Choice, and when there were, there's like a handful. It's really they go out of their way to not tell the parent that we're kicking your kid out, but they go out of their way to come up with reasons to say why this is not a good fit.
Okay.
So it's very semantic.
All right. This is great. Let me circle
Go back
back
next
to
time.
this. Yeah, I'd like to go. So that's really interesting. Thank you for that. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
And this was without the 7th, 8th.
7th, 8th grade.
Right, just so you could see. So just go on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think there's just some interest to know. It was on a bigger chart, is that? It's split it up, so this is over to read this way.
This
So what's the highlight takeaway from this one that you?
Then it's more stable when you look at the K-6. Can we see the percentages in the geocode and just scan them? Geocode and zone on this chart?
So on that one, the highlighted numbers are the number of people whose neighborhood school that they attend.
Yeah, what we were looking at is, would it be more stable if we took, would it be higher percentages in the geocode if we took 7th and 8th grade out? Because the hypothesis is that that's not a fair comparison to K-8 schools.
Correct.
Because so many, as Ralph and I were telling you guys last time,
Yeah.
you know, just
Are
get
placed
placed
there.
there. So let's look at these percentages. So let's take like school, what's the K-8 we were looking at last time?
Look at 50 or 17 or
60,
3.
90. Let's just go through the
Scan the geocodes.
Geocode, you got 35% and 34. Right here, so
Can you point us out?
35%. The other high ones are in the 20s. I noticed that last week, that a high neighborhood zone for any school, 35 was the highest, that was 34. And then like a lot of the other ones, it's about a quarter is the next, 25% is like the next highest.
Yeah, so look at zone. Zones.
But zone is a little different,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
The
We
zone is-
really need to look
Right.
at zone schools.
Yeah.
So then when you take out the 7th and 8th grade, your numbers are up in the, you know, for the most part, 70s
Yeah, so this is what
and 80s, because
many more in the zone.
So they went up.
Yeah, because the
Taken
7th
out
and
this
8th
thing.
graders don't have zone preference. They can pick, the parent can pick anywhere.
Now, how do geocodes differ from the school feeder patterns that we had earlier?
Do we get articulated school feeder patterns?
Well, back, you know, in the maps that we saw there, which came out of the school system, they showed a feeder pattern. Document 2 was the one that,
I think you responded to that question last time, that wasn't generated by the district.
no, it
and
was,
wasn't
it
reliable,
was, I went back and looked, and it's in one of the early documents we got for the FMP phase 2 and 3. They generated it for the whole city, and I just extracted that part for the Southwest because we were fighting for the schools in that area.
So,
And I emailed it to you this afternoon,
David?
but, you know, it's a huge document. It takes minutes for the thing to download. And page 13 has the map of the whole city.
Oh, there you go, yeah. There's your, so that's interesting because I worked with Carl Kenya and Jing Chi to answer that question, so. I don't know what year is on that document. I'd have
It's
to-
2002, I think.
The one thing that I want to just, again, plant this seed that keeps sprouting in my head. If my neighborhood school is 52, and within, you know, a mile in three different directions is 46 school, 28 school, and 33 school.
Mhm.
So it's possible that 4 neighbors living on the same street may be sending their kids to 4 different schools. And yeah, they're all in the same zone, but that does not foster a sense of neighborhood if 4 neighbors on consecutive houses are going to different schools. And that the reality is that the geocode, I think, really is the better measure of how much we are building a sense of neighborhood.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you throw charter schools into the mix, you could have 8 consecutive houses with 8 kids going to 8 different.
That's a good point.
So then the only other thing that I wanted to bring your attention was there's questions about pre-K to K. So we did spend a little bit of time thinking about that, and I was talking to Robin Hooper. And so recommendations, right? So recommendations, and from the group, Megan Delhanty had emailed follow-up. One of the recommendations is pre-K students choose a pre-K class in their zone and then roll up to K, right? And they could stay there for the whole time in elementary school, providing long-term stability to students and families, right? So I talked to Robin, and she said about 75% of the pre-K does go to the zone, about 25% are out of zone. she's concerned, and she said she told this to the board, so you may remember that, that if we say that pre-K has to go to their zone and a parent has a daycare out of the zone,
Right.
they'll choose not to send their child to pre-K.
There was a difference of opinion among board members
Right.
about that. Some people were saying, no, we'll tell them anything because we want everybody,
Right.
as many people into the pre-K
To
as
come to pre-K,
possible. And
right.
I was like, I don't know.
Why would
it's a
daycare
problem.
location matter?
If somebody's work was on the other side of the city, maybe it's more convenient to have their child in.
There's not transportation for pre-K. Right, which is really the
Right, but if
big
you're-
factor. So say you put your child in a morning, before school, whatever, and I'm that provider, and I have 6 kids that I take in between 7 and 8:30 in the morning, and I'm not dropping them off at 20 different schools. I say to that parent, oh yeah, I'll take your kid before and after school, but they have to be going to school A, B, or C. Because that's who I am, and they're paying me, and I can do whatever I want.
Correct.
All right? So I think that's really, but they love me. Their kid's been with me since they were 8 weeks old, and they want their kid to stay with me, so they want the kid in the pre-K program. So they want the kid in the larger thing other than a home daycare. They want their kid in pre-K, but they want their kid in the one that I service.
Adele?
I mean, just.
I'm glad you explained that well to me, because I was like, I don't really, you explained that to me better, because I'm like, it doesn't matter whether you're dropping the kid off, 2 blocks from home and picking them up.
That is a
The providers doing that.
But I don't know whether that's the
Probably
district's
should.
responsibility.
I hope I'm not being naive, but Adele, this, as you approached the state legislature, I know that Buffalo had the foresight to buy some years ago buses that had have car seats, and they do transport pre-K. I think we might get some traction or leverage with state legislators to say, listen, free us from these restrictions. Let us do with this money that we need to do for minibuses or for buses, minibuses with car seats. This would make a tremendous positive impact on our district.
Yeah.
I mean, for years to come, and for the neighborhoods as well. Just that waving of the hand by the legislature to say, listen, we'll give you the money without the restrictions. You know what's best where the rubber hits the road, and we're going to trust you to do that, and we'll see what you do in 5 years.
Well, I liked what you said last time, which was, you don't want to just find out what the rules are, the mandates are, and follow them, but you want to find out, you want to figure out what you want to accomplish, and then you sort of, what was your word, negotiate, or?
You argue.
You argue.
Policies are made to be re-examined.
Absolutely.
Is there any possibility, first of all, is there value in what I just said? And then, if there is there any possibility in making this come
Okay,
true?
so I'm just going to be totally candid. That's all right. What the legislature would say to us, I believe, is, okay, let's talk about Buffalo and transportation. Let's talk about why you spend exponentially more on transportation than Buffalo and your smaller district. And we would have to explain that. But I think we've got a real shot here saying, yeah, we get that and we know why. It's because our routing patterns are like a nuclear explosion. They just go all over the place, And if we could say, here's what we're doing, we're fixing that. And we want to be able to fix that so that we can transport our youngest and our nurses, because we know that's where all the research tells us the impact will come. If we have consistent attendance and good, strong enrollment in pre-K,
right.
we're going to be able to transform our district, because that's where, that's malleable, where the brain is most malleable.
Right.
We
Oh,
want
yeah.
to get those students in the program.
Right.
So does that make sense?
What is the difference? I didn't know we spent exponentially more than Buffalo.
We
So
do.
why is that? 'Cause
You ask me these questions and my brain feels fuzzy, but I was looking at it. I was benchmarking it because of the transportation conversations, probably a third more.
You spend 60 million at least.
We do.
Now,
Well, we do have a river that runs through the city,
that's not that bad. 30% more is.
which is significant.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, okay.
Yeah,
Like
they're
per
35,000,
pupil.
aren't they?
I-
We're less than
I'm-
30. 12,000.
And then, you know, we have Charlotte, which, I mean, we can't, but we do have some unusual required traffic patterns. I mean, I don't know if, I used to, when I worked for state ed, I monitored the city of Buffalo, so I spent more time in Buffalo than most people. And they have like a wagon wheel
Right, that's right.
focus to the
Easier.
district. And it would be much easier to route a wagon wheel from Lake Erie than it is from us to route and down the river for Lake Ontario. So some of it may be practice and policy, some of it is geography. Some,
But
you
I think
know,
we would get challenged on that.
Could we have a,
Because I've been challenged on
yeah,
that.
but, you know, we don't ask any kid to ever walk across the river. We don't ask, you
Mhm.
know, I mean, that's,
Mhm.
transportation takes kids across.
That's a good one. All right, last question, then I want to move to our.
could we ask transportation to project costs if two things, every K through 6 student went to a neighborhood school, and if every K-12 student went to at least a school in their zone?
Yeah, that would.
Because then we can actually,
I think that would be a good study. I think they're with routing right now for summer school and school. I mean, that is a fair question, and I think eventually you're going to want to know that stuff. But give them lead time.
oh yeah,
Give
like
them
that's not
3
like
months or 6
tomorrow.
months. Yeah, sure.
Well,
Next
and I-
week's meeting is not going to.
No, and I appreciate that. That's
The other
not-
thing I wanted to question about that data with Buffalo is that, don't we have more extensive summer school offerings than Buffalo? And would
Good
that
point,
be
too.
attendant transportation costs that aren't comparable?
It's a good question. So
Yeah, no, I think there might be a lot of
do a
differences
lot
that
of
account
summer
for that, yeah.
Yeah.
we do.
So that, I know you want to move forward, but just one fast comment is that, to me, maybe I'm missing something, but to me, this is so fundamental. So that if we had some autonomy with the money that we get from the state regarding transportation and how we use it, then that's the foundation to me. That's the foundation, keystone. Then we can say, okay, let's work with the city to identify catchment areas, so we're capturing neighborhood groups of individual schools, or in some cases, cluster schools. And then we could say with confidence to the people in the neighborhood, the parents and residents, look, we're going to grow back to a neighborhood school district, similar to what 17 School is doing now, with the primary grades moving forward. And there'll be a host of opportunities for waivers, but waivers will be in these categories. So, and by the way, we'll give transportation within the neighborhoods, we'll do transportation for pre-K, because we have that freedom. But that cripples us as we move forward. Without that happening, without that piece in place, to me, that severely cripples us as we try to do policy that really makes sense.
Are you saying the 1.5 mile?
But Ralph, I think that it really is the other way around. That that this team the committee has to put together what they want the policy to be,
Yeah.
what the financial impacts are, and then go to the state and say, you need to do this.
Oh,
Because, you know,
I agree
if
with
we do
that.
it the other way, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna
no,
go,
no.
ha-ha, you know.
But I'm just.
So I think that-
No, I'm not disagreeing.
She's agreeing with you, but I think the order of operation is correct. You have to show what your plan's going to cost.
No, Kathy, you're absolutely right. And, but I'm kind of looking at the big picture and with my frustration and saying, this is, you know,
Sure.
how can we lobby
Yeah, this
and
is
get
so
neighborhood?
big and so complicated.
So can we, to put a cap on that, and Kathy's point, is can somebody from transportation be at the next meeting, and then they can give us a time frame as to when they can do a projection?
They
Oh,
provided one already.
Look at this,
That was on.
Oh, what's this?
document 15,
Which you must do.
.75.
What does that mean?
Can we interpret this?
75% of the people go to the
No,
home.
0.75 miles, right?
0.75 miles.
Right, who's within that?
Okay.
How many students are within 3/4 of a mile of the school?
Oh, this would be busing for anybody over 3/4 of a mile.
This is what it would cost, right? These
Okay.
are, we did a lot of this analysis when we did our universal transportation plan.
Yes.
What would be half mile, what would be 3/4 mile,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so if you read the note, it says this is an unrealistic representation is the fact that placing children homeschool create uneven distribution of students. You know, so, I mean, we're
Ooh,
back
that's
down to
nice.
still having,
Yeah,
Oh,
because
so-
of the way, right now, these geocode areas were drawn under very different pretenses. So, like, take School 33, we were just talking about that. If every student in the catchment attended School 33, it wouldn't be full. Is that what we said?
no, 33 would not. And look, I mean, if you take a look at school number 1, you know, it's under capacity and 8% of the school are kids that live there, but that's, could be everybody that lives there. I mean, you know, so again, this work needs
Take
to
that
be
to
done
yourself, yeah.
before we went to transportation, you know, and say, hey, it would look like this with this geocode and this number of kids in this school living in this neighborhood, then what would it cost?
Right.
Transportation could give you the data. I think we're asking them to kind of,
And they say some schools would be over capacity.
Right.
So, I mean, this is a big study that would have to be, but it's okay, you know.
Would that be like a placement and transportation?
Yeah, joint study.
It's a placement and transportation joint study.
The,
or it's
I-
just a placement study and then transportation
Right.
tells us what the answers are,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, but, because like if you look at School 45, it says that, you know,
It's estimated 10% of everybody in the geocode went.
But so
so the
clearly the geocodes are
Right.
Right.
correct.
And they
So-
haven't been in a long.
So number one, so this is very helpful. So the very first thing that we should even do in terms of getting data to make any kind of policy recommendation, we're all just going on our own anecdotal evidence, and this is hard data prior to last week. If we had the map of the city with a square for every kid, right on the map, and then schools, we could figure out how many of those little squares could fit within a given school, and
Yeah,
like
there are people that
draw a
do
rough
that for a living.
geocode.
Right.
Jeff can do that.
Yeah,
I
there are people
actually-
that could make a recommendation for you to review.
Yeah.
If you said.
Who's
you
that?
wanna- There's,
No, there is a whole geocoding program.
Right.
Oh, is there?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
went to geocoding training last
You
year.
don't
It's
have
quite
to hand
exciting.
you it.
Can I?
Software.
I mean, is it like proprietary? I would love to be there for an hour watching it happen.
But, I mean,
A couple of years ago, I asked for Maria, transportation
Yeah, yeah.
director. I asked Maria for that. She quickly got that for me to say that within the school 17 catchment area, there's 850 children who are eligible to go to that school and don't. And 100 of them do, but
Right. So Maria,
but
can
you don't, but
you can
17
find
can't
that.
hold 850.
She has
kids,
like the routing program.
I just make that,
So
well,
would that be reasonable? Could we ask for before the next meeting or the one after this one, a geocode map where school capacity matched the number of kids?
No, not by,
No, I mean not matched 100%, but was like,
Not in a week or two.
not in a week.
Okay.
I mean, that's a bit of a
So-
project.
so-
yeah, no, that's.
Yeah.
They're in the process of hiring the
Yeah.
architect person to replace the person who did the last geocoding. I think when we talked to Mike about it, he said it's about a 6-month job.
Okay.
So just so you know, it's not,
But it's important.
because, anyway. So
Okay.
without any of the old neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff, even just doing it, so they know it needs to be done and people are working on it, but it's not quick.
So the
the,
other things, I just wanted policy recommendations, so we do policies. So from your last conversation, another suggestion that you might consider, we have 10, 58, and 8. And they're officially recognized as our EL schools, expeditionary learning schools, and there's one in each zone. So Robin was saying 10, can become an issue pre-K to K, but if school 10 becomes a neighborhood school rather than a citywide draw. It was a citywide draw many years ago, and then the whole goal was citywide draws are supposed to be replicated in each zone if they're effective, right? And it has been. So there's there's an EL school, which is 10, there's 58, and there's 8. So consider, this is a point of consideration, if 10 was no longer a citywide, it would ease things up, it'd be easier to get a neighborhood milieu going at 10. And there's really, the reason for it to be a citywide is past. Does that make sense to you?
Right, so it's like finding another citywide for EL.
Well, no, you have one in every zone now. So so any parent can choose an
Oh,
EL
it's not
school
that big.
in their zone.
Gotcha.
Right, so it doesn't have to continue to have that citywide draw. Citywide students can't roll up to pre-K to K, someone asked that last time, because it takes away seats for citywide students. So this is an example. There's 18 pre-K seats at school 15, which is a citywide draw, right? But there's only 22 kindergarten seats. So if we said you can roll up from pre-K to K, I think everybody that went to 15 would do it because they love that school. And that would leave only 4 seats in K for anybody to enroll in, right?
Right.
So you see, that's what the barrier is to that. And there were questions about that.
Okay.
And then just for an example, a thought for policy, infuse the pre-K into the kindergarten policy in terms of the way that the lottery is run, the way that placements are made. If we had the same operating principles between pre-K and K, that would be helpful, and Robin agreed to that, so we talked this out. And also, before pre-K classes are placed, this is a facilities thing. What's happening right now is we're just placing pre-K simply where there's space. And we don't think about the long term. You really need to think about the long term, where K happens, K6, if the students can stay there, the zone. But as I talked to her today, she's like, we haven't had that luxury. So we did start, a facilities usage charge group, and we did start to lay the infrastructure for it today and lay all the issues for facilities modernization, for long-term planning, right? So pre-K's got to be at that table and be a part of it. And if this committee has any recommending powers for that, that's going to be a change, but a really good change.
Okay.
So that's just where. So I think that's everything I was talking about last week.
Yeah, and pre-K didn't even exist when the policy was written.
Right.
As of January.
Well,
Yeah, as of January.
but
And Robin's very open to it, and I thought it would be a great way to collaborate. So.
Okay, good. I'm done. All right, well, I'd like us to get started on the questions, direct us back towards the policy and have group discussion around it and just see where we're in agreement and where we're not in agreement. So we begin to move toward the group from here. Some of these you all will be able to answer just like that, and others are going to require some discussion. So if we can blow it up a little bit. Make sure everybody at the end of the table can read that. So the first question is, does the policy, because that was the charge, what would folks say? And I know you had some thoughts.
What does equitable mean in this case?
You can interpret it as you want.
Okay.
So if it's interpreted as,
I say it does for families that participate in the lottery,
it is equitable
Yeah.
for families who participate in the lottery.
but not for those who don't.
I really feel like the answer to this question is kind of. So it's
So explain
not,
that, yeah.
It's somewhat orderly, but I don't feel like it's very orderly because nobody understands how it works. Parents don't know what the rules are. And so I would not call it orderly.
So maybe it's more that it could be orderly if you feel like the rules are being followed, but it's opaque to the public.
I think we have to go with how it's being done right now. Like this is like, what is the real?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I guess I'm saying it could be worse.
and if we went to the question of equitable, at least sitting where I sit, is it's when you walk through the door to placement, it doesn't matter whether you're a board member's child or a person who just came here from Puerto Rico or someone who is a low-income single-family mom. You have the same opportunity to participate in the lottery and have the opportunity to have your child in the seat that you want. So there's no preference given to people because of race, color, creed, economics, whatever. And that's what we consider to be equitable and what I think our bottom ethic is for how parents come in. I mean, theoretically, if we're doing everything 100% right, we're treating you the same no matter who you are when you walk through the door.
I think the policy has some unique implicit disqualifiers, though. I hear what Kathy's saying, I'm also in the Office of Parent Engagement, so I hear all the really angry parents, you know? And what I brought up last time, I think what destabilizes, and I don't know if there's anything you can do via policy, is the parent who has multiple children and doesn't, the policy prevents them from having their children in the same school. Because of there's factors in that policy that prevent. And sometimes it's a factor of transience, because we have highly transient families, so they have 2 kids in the school that they love, and then for some, life reason, they can't change, they move out of the zone. Now they're trying to enroll their kindergartner. The bus is gonna come to their house anyway to pick up those kids and take them to the school, because we're not forcing them to move, but they can't put their kindergartner with their older children.
So maybe it means that it's orderly and equitable for those families that fit a certain mold,
Mhm.
but not for those with, more than a certain number of kids. So if there are problems with families with certain constellations or mobility, that it does not feel equitable or orderly for.
Right.
I would say it's equitable, but it doesn't make them happy. I again come back to the fact that it is not equitable for the families who don't participate in the lottery.
You're
And
right.
those
You're
students
right.
are about almost half the
The
population.
ones who missed the deadline, maybe.
Well, and because then
Yeah.
many times I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing, because
That's like half the-
parents can't get their kids in the same school. Did we do a study on how many parents have siblings in different schools? Have we done that percentage?
That was requested.
Another interesting
It was
study.
requested, and Jim said, I see them using that now.
They are, though, that's the one that they said they could have it by the end of next week.
Oh,
Because I would think that would really shed some light on this.
yeah. Although you brought up a point a few meetings ago that you thought that the best number would be 0
Oh, for the number in the
participation in
lottery,
lottery,
yeah.
because everybody would be in a neighborhood school.
Yeah.
Right.
Or when the sibling are done.
You just get placed in your neighborhood school? Is that?
Well, if you apply early, well, you apply on time, February 29th, whatever it is, and you come in and you say, well, I want to go to my neighborhood school, and there's room, so you go. And it comes to the lottery, and you're not in the lottery, you don't care. And if everybody got to that point and was not in the lottery,
Would be a need for the lottery.
you don't need it.
All right. Is that enough answers to the first
Yeah,
question?
one thing that also you have to remember is that for children of parents who have easy transportation, shipping kids across town to either because of this choice problem, they may have equal opportunity to go to, if they're in the northwest or over one end of the zone, to go to, say, school 19, but the parents don't all have the same means of getting to the school when there's an open house or something, depending on what their transportation is. I was up in the northwest and my son went to school 19, and the number of times I had to take him to school because he missed the bus.
Right.
And if he had been the son of a poor parent who didn't have job flexibility, he would have missed so many days, he would have been wiped out that first year of that school.
Yeah, so it creates different hardships depending on what resources families have, the policy. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We're not going to do the suggestions yet, we're just going to get our responses. How do low-income and middle-class families respond to the policy? What are the shared and disparate impacts? So here's a really interesting question about, middle-class families may have one response. Low-income families may have a different response, and I think we need to tease these things out. Because our district has both.
I think everybody's confused by it.
Confused by the question?
No, confused by the policy.
So we
Oh,
had,
confusion, okay, that's a shared impact, we're all confused.
Well, Liz, I fully understand. A couple years ago, I Googled level 3 sex offenders, and the school 17. There were so many red dots that I couldn't even see the street names. That's something that flies over our head sometimes. So if I was a parent in that neighborhood, you better believe that I'd be sending my child front porch to school and school to front porch at 33 school or something like that. I would. Even though it would break my heart, even though I knew if the school in my neighborhood was wonderful, my child's safety comes first.
Right, so you could say if it can be assumed that lower income families are living in neighborhoods with more crime or sexual predators or what have you, perhaps there's a higher likelihood that those families would want to send their kids out of their neighborhood.
Yeah. The sexual predators land in the neighborhoods that they can assimilate in easily, that don't have a very strong neighborhood group or have a political power to keep them out. And I'm going to tell you something, in that neighborhood, I was shocked. I literally was shocked to see the number of red dots.
But that brings up a better point, that the vast majority of those dots, Ralph, are people within your family. And that stoking that narrative that it's somebody that you don't know, we really should be telling people, don't take your kid to your brother's birthday party.
Well,
statistically, that's the reality. It's not the boogeyman grabbing somebody.
Some of the neighborhoods are out of balance when it comes to ownership and rental. And so that particular neighborhood for years and years and years, even in the 90s when I was there, was out of balance. Relatively very few homeowners. It's getting better now because of Cornerstone's building and also Habitat, and that's good. But the balance has not yet been achieved. So there's a lot of frustration with the homeowners to say, listen, my property values, we need help. So that balance is not yet achieved. There's a lot of tension and fear in that neighborhood for the right reasons. It's not perceived, it's real.
Yeah. Well, and this probably goes back to what you had suggested, Greg. You thought we should be doing focus groups and having some questions. So this would be a perfect question to take out to different groups of families, right?
Yeah, because I think that's really the focus, group questions are really what's going to drive changing this policy, because, I'm listening to these questions when I was reading them last night and listening to how we are kind of analyzing the data. And I'm thinking about the data, even though it's all really very relevant to this whole thing, I'm not sure we could sit in this room here analyzing the data and come up with real solutions, because that's all massive kind of stuff. Whereas these focus group questions might actually get to the heart of the overall reason the choice policy is not where it was intended to be. Because I was reading the choice policy again last night, and the way it was kind of intended, sounds to me the way it was intended in 1997 was to kind of even out all of this awfulness of the school system. And in fact, even though that was a valiant attempt to do that, it's kind of like just gone parallel of that. It's not actually hit the mark. It's just kind of like traveling right next to it without actually doing anything. So I think these focus group questions might get to the heart.
And Greg's suggestion is really good. I don't want to be Johnny One Note here, but the mayor is desperately trying to have safe, and vibrant, and healthy neighborhoods. We're doing the same thing. We've been trying to do that for years and years that I can remember in this district. Well, we need to join forces. We need to link arms. So when we talk about focus groups, no one can do it better than the city, because they know the neighborhood groups, they know the leaders, and if they do it in conjunction with us, and if we move this forward as a team, then I think the success, people will start to see the city school district and the city as working together for once.
I think
Yep.
that's key.
And that's powerful.
So I think it's a big issue that so many people are missing the deadline for the lottery. And we had some data that showed that low-income people are more likely to miss the deadline. actually was not a huge difference. So it was, you know, I think it was about 8 to 10%. So to me, I think maybe it's not so much that it's having, or that it's biased towards low-income families. It's just biased towards people who don't know what's going on for whatever reason. Like maybe they just moved here,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, clearly, you know, we need to be doing better communication, marketing, and transparency around that. And I don't know that we have budget even
So-
for that,
well,
right? So,
Even if
Communications does billboards and buses and
Yeah.
TV commercials and all those kinds of things at the time of the lottery.
Right.
But I did have a discussion with Robin Hooper, which is a little, it was a sidebar, totally unexpected on my part, but she expects to have, well, something like 2,200 pre-K 4 seats this year, which is almost as many kindergartners as we have enrolled. So if that happens, we'll have easier access to our parents than we've ever had in the past, which should, I mean, we go to all the pre-K sites, like during the month of January or January and February to be there so parents don't even have to come down here to enroll their kids. So I guess my point is that we have more access, because of the increased enrollment in pre-K 3 and 4, we have more access to contact and send information to the parents that really are there. So the percentage of parents who come blindly into the city and know nothing about the lottery process is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of pre-K.
so,
But it's still 55%. It's still only 55% who sign up on time. And
But it should increase as the pre-K 4 numbers increase, is my point.
And we have somebody on this committee who has had their kid in pre-K and missed the lottery because they didn't get the information. So I don't know.
if we had 100% participation in the lottery, that would be the worst thing that could happen to the placement office. Because right now, they can take almost half the population, and if there's a school that nobody chooses, for all the reasons that we want to conjure up, placement can fill that school. If 100% of the families participate in the lottery and nobody chooses school 52 on their ranking, when I think 5 schools is way too many to ask a parent, 5 out of whatever. It should be, we're going to promise you, your top 2 choices. Placement we'd have schools that nobody would choose. And how do you put kids in those buildings? Right now, we can take the kids whose parents don't enroll and we can stick them wherever it's convenient. And that is my number one condemnation of the policy, not of the people who do it. It's how is that question going to be answered? Where do we send kids if there's a school that nobody chooses? Who gets to go to that one? Right now, I know who the kids are. They're the ones that the parents don't
It's a
participate.
lottery.
No, it's the ones whose parents don't
No,
participate.
I'm saying like if 100% of the kids participated in the lottery, who would end up in the schools? The
What if
people
no-
who lose in the lottery.
If
It's
nobody
random.
writes 52,
Well, then, I mean, I don't know, but it's random.
but if nobody writes that in their selection,
Is that a realistic thing? Has something like that really kind of happened before? Is that something that we can, spend time, kind of considering? And I think maybe why would that happen? I mean, has that happened? We're like,
Okay, so right now, when we run the lottery and I think parents have a citywide and then 4 choices. We sometimes have 20 or 25 kids who none of the schools they picked, they don't get placed at any of those. So we make wait lists for those, and then through attrition, we're able to manage those like 25 kids so they get into one of the schools of their choice. So, but he's right. I mean, if we increase the number of people in the lottery, I mean, there are some schools that traditionally every year are under-enrolled at the end of the lottery process. So it's not like when you run the lottery, it's not even. That says, oh, well, this school is full, and this school's full, this school's full, and this one's half full, and this one's a third full. This one's 3/4 full. I mean, and
So-
those numbers, those schools are traditional. I mean, traditionally the same.
are these under enrolled schools still performing schools?
Some are, some aren't.
Really? That's interesting. We should have a good discussion about this to brainstorm.
It's an interesting thing because there are some high achieving, parents pick schools by reputation.
Yep.
All right, and when when the reality has changed, the reputation has not.
A good principal makes a huge difference.
So we have schools that are, we have one that I can think of right now that's one of the few elementary schools that is not in anything. It's a high achieving normal school and it never filled in the lottery and it didn't fill in the lottery this year, even though it was all over the news and it's one of our high achieving schools. But it's
So that's some
tradition.
interesting information to get out there, like really push particularly schools like this. So that's a really interesting.
So it sounds to me like some of the policy budget should be in advertising, ads, radio, TV, newspaper.
Identifying these,
Yeah, but-
particularly these kinds of schools.
On the
right?
But I
lottery
think-
itself have the rating.
Yeah.
More participation will lead to fewer people getting first, second, third, and there may be schools that you have to, if you're in charge of placement, and you have to fill school 52, I'll use my own kids, and it's a school of about 350, and only 100 families listed on their lottery selection. You could take those 100 families and just say, I don't care whether it was 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, I'm going to put you at 52. Where are the other 200 families going to come from?
That's what the ineffective ad campaign is supposed to do.
Like promoting the school or promoting the policy?
The school.
Well, that's not a use of taxpayer.
But the other thing,
You got to have teachers, not
well, the other
publicity of
thing.
the school.
A
that you
good
can say
principal,
you-
Mark is on.
Thank you. I was just going to say, is that there are
Just
principals,
talk about the principal.
principals and their staff who do active recruitment for their schools.
Carl.
No, just
Yeah.
the point, you're right that the policy doesn't match, but since we're here to reevaluate the policy, why don't we also then talk about if we are going to do advertising or putting stories in the news, just in conjunction with what we will recommend the policy is, leaving it open right now. But, instead of thinking about how it's going to butt heads with what we have now, because I think we agree what we have now needs tweaking.
Because all you really have to, I don't think it has to be like, some kind of a economic, marketing thing, like you're just trying to get more students. Why don't we just, this great school with not a lot of students in it, just put the results everywhere, that kind of thing. So it's just like, oh, this school has this, and it's everywhere. And we do that with all the schools, or at least some of the underpopulated, higher achieving schools, at least.
At least to start with.
At least to start with. And so we don't have to say, where the city is trying to promote one school over the other, because that's probably not what we should be doing. But we just like this school, these schools, these are all their great attributes, and we just plaster it everywhere.
Okay. I'm looking at the time. Mia has to leave in 5 minutes. So, I want to try. I like this process. This feels really fruitful to really have direct conversation with what the intention of the policy was, and then hear the disparate and collected thoughts about the policy. So I'd like to, continue doing this in the next few meetings if that feels right to others. Yeah. We might have time for one since you have to go. But,
One of the things that we've talked about before, and that kind of falls into what we were just talking about, is having registration be at the neighborhood school. So each parent gets a letter that says, you can register your child between such and such a date and such and such a date at the neighborhood school.
It was mentioned in the policy, and there's a question further down about, are there registration centers? No. So some of these are straight no.
That would give the principal at the school and teachers there a chance to try to sell their school and point to the things that they think would be things that parents want, and having to sell yourself helps improve your performance.
Sort of related to that, I had an idea about, and maybe you guys do this already to some degree and I'm not aware, so stop me if that's the case, but what about sort of recruitment fairs within a geocode? And again, I'm not completely up to speed on everything, but within a neighborhood, and have the schools in that neighborhood come and table and invite the parents to come and stop at every table and talk to the staff and hear about the facility. And
What is currently happening with recruitment?
District does
So,
that.
yeah, so
We-
we actually tried to change that, so, because we do it all together, right? There's, what is that called, the fair?
A school expo,
School expo.
convention center?
Yes.
Well,
And it's
they
like a-
actually do the school expo is grade 7 and 9.
Right. and then they do
Primarily high
elementary.
school.
But it's all
And then-
centralized.
The elementary
so
are there
it's not
too.
at the local
Isn't-
do it in the neighborhood.
The pre-K
Right,
one,
and so I think
pre-KK is
you're
here.
almost seeding
Pre-K.
this thought of, oh, I should go somewhere else in the city besides where I live.
Well, and it's just
I know.
harder. It's
Right.
harder for parents
Yeah.
probably to get, a lot of parents to get to that, but
Well,
if it's in their neighborhood.
I know
It
my
does make it
neighborhood-
competitive.
No nonsense.
And it's
Yeah.
competitive, just from, as an objective person, like, yeah, there's a lot of energy around it, there's a lot of time that's used for this expo, and the amount of parents that came out, not really that much, it was mostly school staff. you know.
And I would say it's not an equitable distribution of families.
No, it's not.
And I know my neighborhood, which is the Southwest Island, does it on their own,
Yes.
inviting
Some
all the
neighborhoods
schools
do it themselves.
on their own, so they invite, but they also invite the charters, everybody, so that's something that, talking about synergy, we could tap into.
Yeah.
I think the best way to see school is to go to the school.
No, I know, I'm just saying, because it is autonomous from the,
And
they're trying to promote the neighborhood.
we've kind of destroyed the knowledge that the neighborhood has about their school,
Yeah.
because a lot of them didn't go to that school because they were going a mile and a half away when they were having their kids a few years earlier.
It's really important.
One of the thoughts as we move forward, and I haven't thought this out yet, but it doesn't have to be like, for example, School 17. It doesn't have to be the whole school. The policy could say, listen, this is the identified school catchment area, and for the next school year, pre-K 2 will come to the school, but these are the waiver areas. If there is, these are the transportation assistance things, and so on and so forth. So you allow children with the most time in that school, and they'll have the most anxiety leaving, to move forward in their grades and leave the school. But that you're growing within, at the primary levels, you're growing that neighborhood school within 3 to 5 years, you'll have a neighborhood school. So we think in terms of growing that with the policy, growing it with the primary grades first, with waivers and transportation assistance, things of those natures, and then move forward. It may be the best way to move within 5 years, we'll have what we want. Then if we had the state to give us a little help with the autonomy with that money, we'd be in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think we're out of time for this meeting. This is a good discussion, I think, and I think it feels fruitful. This is online, of course. You could put stuff in. I would actually rather that you go online and write your own comments down and bring it to the next meeting so that we can kind of move more forthrightly through it. I mean, I don't want to speed it up necessarily. I think this is really the crux of the matter here. And it's good to have all the heads around the table rather than individual responses. So let's look at our next meeting. I'm actually going to be out of town next Thursday, and I'm unavailable on Tuesday here. So we're going to have to skip 2 weeks, if that's okay. Could we look at Tuesdays by any chance? And the only reason I suggest this is because I asked if Molly Clifford, could come, and she said Tuesdays were possibilities.
Tuesday the 12th?
It would be the 12th, yes. Does
I
that
have a
work?
conflict.
I mean, it could
Every
be the
Tuesday or
12th.
just the 12th?
Every Tuesday.
Because the next few Tuesdays could be the 12th, 19th, and 26th, or we could just aim for the 12th.
Same time, Liz?
See. Yeah, same time. And I'll see if I can get her to come to that one, and she.
Molly would be great, yeah.
Yeah, she'd really, really be great. And I could bring some other council members to other.
Maybe
ones.
just one for Molly's sake, and then back to Thursday.
And then we could go back to
Yeah.
Thursday, sure.
I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we'll just say the 12th so that everybody knows our next date, and I'm gonna see if I can get her to come on the 12th. Okay. So that's it. Please go home, find this Google document, write your own personal comments to it, and be ready to continue the discussion.
You want us to write right into the document?
No, don't write it to the document,
Okay.
because I think this around the table
Okay.
discussion is really helpful, but,
Yeah, and
think
we'll
about it
we'll
when you come
Yeah.
back. And you could also be thinking about which ones of these questions or versions of this question could be good for the focus groups that we hope to be doing beyond this group. Okay, anything else to add? Thanks, everyone. This is great. It's really helpful to have you all
I was
here,
just
or
gonna
at
say,
least one
can't
of
be
you,
in-
you know, is it possible to have you, one or two of you? Because you're just so knowledgeable about the placement.
This,
Either that, I mean.
Can't be
whatever-
outstanding.
Where are
but
you
there's-
going to be?
this document that just got passed down there, that was one that we used this year to go lobby in Albany, and I'd gotten it from, I think it was the superintendent passed it on to us. Has that been updated at all with more concrete numbers for the cost of short-distance busing? Because that ends up saying that we'd be saving around $4 million a year if we were busing to the local school, assuming that kids had, that we were being reimbursed for that. But I know
I'd have to give this to transportation to see. I remember this was February 2015, so this wasn't this year, this was last year. Yeah. We'd have to update this. We did some work on this again this year. So we could show you what we did this year. It was a little bit different than this one. And we actually worked with transportation. We weren't sure, transportation didn't work on this. We weren't sure where they got their data from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, you didn't commit. I didn't hear you say, yes, I'll be here next week. We'd love to have you here if you can. At the very minimum, I wonder if you could take a look at the document and write some thoughts about it.
Yeah, what time is it on the 12th?
We'll send you the link.
4:30 though? 4:30?
4:30, Tuesday
so
the 12th.
the 12th, okay. So not next week, the week
Not
after.
next week.
I'll give this to transportation.
Okay.
You have everything we got this year on this, right? Do you have all those documents? From the universal pilot work that we did this year?
I'm not sure.
Okay, if you're not. Somebody has not. I see what we did. Yeah. It was the engineer stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you won't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.